Lovely to see a nice video talking about new technologies and the way the world is evolving. Also, since morning, I think we've seen the basic themes evolving from, if we compare it from last year.
Mr. Bawa, I'm extremely sorry to interrupt in between. I would request you to kindly take your seats according to the pictures displayed behind your back.
Oh, okay.
I sincerely apologize. And
next year, Gen AI will automatically do it.
definitely. Now the stage is all yours, and thank you so much for that supporting gesture. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, actually, to be fair, next year I'm sure Gen AI will automatically recognize faces and move pictures or etc. So we have seen themes around, terabit capacity is happening everywhere. The old gig is now a tera. We're seeing Gen AI coming, Industry 5.0 being spoken about. So this is, the world is moving really fast in this space. So it's exciting to be in this telco space now. And, the way things are evolving, I don't know what's going to come next year. Things will absolutely change. And we're talking AI. AI is almost like a thing of the past. It's Gen AI everywhere. Companies like, for example, if I give an example of PwC, we are doing first level of interviews from a Gen AI agent. So it's, people don't even come to know about it. It's as advanced as this much, which is happening today. But on that note, thanks Prashant for coming. And it's great to have a discussion around Nokia network infrastructure. So let's start with just to understand what is network infrastructure in Nokia's parlay. This word network infrastructure, what does it mean? What is involved? What is NI? Just to demystify this for everybody.
Thank you, Vinish. Good morning, everyone. Nokia, from an overall brand perspective, is taking care of this leap of the data growth from an end-to-end perspective. Within Nokia, we have carved out a business group which is called Network Infrastructure, which is NI. And this takes care of the end-to-end infrastructure underneath the network, which is required for this exponential data growth which is happening. At NI in Nokia, we are a business unit which has three major pillars, which we constitute to ensure that the numbers and the names which we've heard since morning of the growth speed and the low latency is taken care. Our three foundation pillars, which I mentioned, are mainly the IP, which is the IPification of the network, which is the need of the hour today, which is going leaps and bounds when 5G came into picture. The optics, which is the DWDM setup and the physical layer we talked about. And then eventually the fixed broadband, which finally reaches the enterprise and the end users at their end user mile, so that the speeds which are created by the network actually are efficient and enjoyed by the end user there. With these three pillars, the Nokia infrastructure business takes care of mainly the CSPs, but more importantly, we are into businesses with IP, ISPs, enterprise, data centers, web scalers. So anywhere in the world where you see data growing, this is where network infrastructure plays an important role. To put in numbers, we do close to 8 billion euros of business globally. And these packet transmissions which I talked about, which take place, 1 out of every 2 packets somewhere on the network NI piece hit some part of our network. So that's the scale and the system which we have brought into our NI business.
Interesting. So this is a new terminology, I think pretty much almost a year or so old in terms of the business unit. So good to see that. Now, while 5G has evolved so much in the last couple of years, in India specifically, the uptake has happened. What has NI's role been in 5G use cases and applications? So what is the NI's role in this whole 5G adoption in the country in terms of the use cases and applications?
I mean, I really enjoy this question because this question has been consistent since the last 5 years when we started talking about 5G, then in 2022 when we started deploying 5G, that what is that killer app or the killer use case? And today, since morning we've heard that there have been 2 or 3 important use cases which have been made 5G possible towards monetization and the utilization from an end user perspective. What is needed to do that is the flawless execution of the network, the low latency of the network, which takes care of this. We just heard, about the ambulance and the infrastructure which was built up in a small hospital. Now, if there is a delay in that network setup, the patient will be in a very different situation than we expect them to be. So the network, which will be actually an optimum requirement, will be to deliver the speeds which they want, the data and the packets reaching at the right time with absolutely no chance of error. At Nokia Network Infrastructure, what we do is we do 2 aspects of it. One part is to take care of this setup which is there with lot of redundancy, with lot of ensurements of the quality of the network. And the second part is the automation. I really appreciate the concept you got, and there is Gen AI coming in which will correct a small thing, what we mentioned on stage now. But this is what is actually needed in the automation setup as well. When there is some part of intelligence the system will bring in from an understanding perspective of what is needed to execute the use case. Whether it's in a factory doing a private LTE setup, whether it's in an ambulance for a patient, whether it's a fixed wireless access network which is built in your home to give you speeds. So at all levels, when we are talking about 5G use cases, the Nokia NI piece is stitched into it to ensure the 100% deliverable which we are looking forward for.
Very interesting. So it looks like NI touches almost every part of the whole backhaul network, right from, once the call is, while radio call is made, everything else is touched by a Nokia component in the NI piece, right?
Absolutely.
So you mentioned about FWA and fixed networks. There was a news article around Nokia making the world's largest R&D factory or R&D setup for fixed networks in Chennai, right? Can you tell us more about that? What will it do? What is it going to be used for, and how is it going to benefit India?
So this is actually a moment of pride for us. We have an R&D setup in Chennai, and we do it for multiple posts, but then for fixed networks, which is the fixed broadband, as we call it. Fixed broadband is basically two sides of the coin. One is using the fiber network, which comes to your broadband home, which is using the fiber connectivity. The other side of it is using the 5G radios, using a wireless access. So there's a fixed wireless access router in your home, which connects to a nearby 5G site and gives you the broadband capability. What in Nokia we've done now in Chennai is this is the largest fixed networks lab in the world, and one of the largest labs we set up into our portfolio, which will be in Chennai. This takes care of the Wi-Fi, the FWA, the FTTH. From all perspectives, all R&D, we are going to do it here. In fact, to make it formal, Vinish, what we did, we exchanged a memorandum of understanding recently with the Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Thiru M.K. Stalin, and also with the Honorable Minister of Industries, Mr. Raja, so Dr. Raja. So we actually have taken this now into an official level as well, putting a lot of focus because we want India to be a very important home ground for us globally when we are developing fixed network solutions. And very soon you will see a lot of new products, softwares, automation, all related to Gen AI coming out of our Chennai R&D.
Excellent, and it looks like Chennai is a major hub because there is already a factory where now even optical equipment has been manufactured. You announced last year, now with this lab setup, so great investments being done by Nokia. On the optical front, and I think we heard earlier also, this whole wave of hyperscalers and optical connectivity growth for data centers. What's your thoughts about that, Prashant, and how is Nokia playing a role and riding on this wave of hyperscalers and optical connectivity growth in India?
Let me answer this in two parts, Vinish. One part is the need of the hour is changing so rapidly. And this is not the end of it, it's the beginning of it. We are going to see an exponential requirement of data maybe a year or two down the line, and it's going to multiply maybe another 5x in the next 5 years. Depending on the analyst you go to, the minimum number I heard or I've read is 4x. So 4 to 9x is the growth expected in the next 5 years. We again touched upon the previous presenter that there is the need of the hour to go into edge. It's because everything cannot flow through the network. Every data has to be at the edge. Luckily, what is happening with our web scalers, hyperscalers, data center builders, they are very smart, and they are actually taking care of the future today. They are building the networks, they are building data centers at the edge, ensuring there is absolutely no latency there. There is requirement, and it's fulfilled before they build up. At Nokia infrastructure, network infrastructure, what we do, we take care of the optical side by providing the data center interconnect solutions to these web scalers and hyperscalers. In fact, on top, we also have an IP portfolio, which is basically the data center fabric, as we call it. So both sides of the data center, when it comes to the fabric or the DCI, we take care of this. Another aspect which I would like to touch upon here is basically there are a lot of new startups and new data center providers who are building up their stage. So, gone are the days when you had these global big players coming up. there are these, I'll not use the word homegrown, but because they are growing everywhere in the world, but we are very proud to see that we are partnering with these kind of startups and new data center providers and web scalers, providing them our knowledge, our understanding to build their networks efficiently, and also to ensure that they reach the sweet spot of growth very soon. So we are working big time with all our web scale and data center partners and trying to ensure whatever requirement they have from this portfolio is taken care.
No, totally. I think data centers, we all know, is probably the the fastest growing market is India. There is, so much of growth in this space happening. We also, as I get a new company or a private equity or somebody coming almost every week to us and investing in data centers. So great space to be in. Prashant, also on a different note, Nokia refreshed its brand almost now 1.5, 2 years ago. That was for a purpose to give a new age to the company. So what's the industry uptake? What's your view? How has it helped the company around the refreshed brand? And what's been the change in the market dynamics because of the brand?
Very, very interesting question. It's been 1.5 years now. Last February is when we refreshed our brand. We refreshed our theme. There were two main reasons for it. Nokia, as an organization, is a 155-year-old company. And then the last 30 years of this telecom generation was mainly started with mobile phones, and the brand went very, very strong with the network providers. When we moved into understanding that the network is not just the hardware or the software running the base stations, it was an end-to-end setup which we wanted to do. By end-to-end, what do I mean? We wanted cloud to understand, the virtualization piece to come in, the infrastructure which I just touched upon. So we realized that there is a lot of color and agility in the network which has come in now. Gone are the days when there had line-to-line connectivity to do a wireless network. So what we did was we consciously had a more colorful, vibrant Nokia with a little more Gen Z kind of a setup rather than writing a simple blue Nokia in black, blue and white, and try to cater to the markets beyond the standard business units which we had. We revamped the strategy of creating different business groups, targeting different partners and customers so that there is a connect which comes out of this. Underlying to this was the vision and the visibility to the end users and to the audience. But what we did was we ensured we create pillars of performance, of the automation piece, very, very important, which becomes a DNA for us to every product we create. I'll take the liberty here to talk about the end-to-end portfolios which we have, whether it is the mobile networks or the cloud infrastructure, cloud networks, and also the network infrastructure. The theme of that new brand, which absolutely was very, very clear, high on performance and as much as automated, because with the scale we are seeing the networks are going to grow, it's not possible to run them without automation. So that was the entire thought process. It took almost a year, and then we launched it. It took us a year until this January when we actually executed it end to end.
Yeah, I think overall feedback, what we saw in MWC also, it was probably the biggest news there. So I think personally speaking, it's been a great feedback, and a refreshed company is emerged from here. Maybe we have time for a couple of more questions. Moving on, we've heard about AI, machine to machine. So from an NI point of view, when products are being developed, how is this AI and M2M and APIs being adopted, and what new features, etc., using this AI world are being done in the world of NI, and how is that helping enterprises?
So I'll answer it in a very simple format, Vinish. What we are doing, AI is what was, you can call it automation in the earlier words. It's just something which has to be self-corrected, self-improvised, self-automated. And what we did is, in our business unit, what we are planning to do is, we divide and use AI in all the 3 key domains which we are. We start with the silicon. So Nokia now, for their network infra products, more than 50-60% of the products use our own silicon. So we are not dependent on any third-party silicon. And the biggest advantage we get is we use these features into building our silicon. We understand what is the next step, what is the hardware configuration which is going to come in, what is the peak output you can get from that silicon. And that chipset actually gives us that edge, which creates the value for the end user. The second important part what we do is the automation piece. For all the three portfolios, we are completely working on AI-based automation. We have different terminologies, as we call it. We have Wave Suite for optics. We have Corteca and Altiplano for fixed networks. We have STM for IP. So for every domain, we are using AI-based automation for which the manual intervention and the correction of errors is done seamlessly. And that flawless execution and flawless run of the network is again in the back end taken care through this AI automation. Last but not the least is the support and the next steps which will happen. This era is not going to stop, Vinish. We are going to have a lot of changes still accounting and in getting involved into this business. We will see a lot of changes, a lot of curve which will have to be learned as we move on. So this is again an adaptability, as we discussed today, which has to be completely imbibed into the system so that you take care of the silicon, you take care of the automation, and then you take care of the adaptability all through AI.
No, very interesting. And I know time's up, but I think what we heard, refreshed brand, NI is 3 verticals, supporting enterprises and service providers. You have new innovations coming to support data centers, hyperscalers, the world's largest R&D setup in Chennai. So great stuff, also a factory. So fantastic stuff being done by Nokia, and all the best to you and Nokia NI. Thanks, Prashant.
Thank you, Vinish.